Hello there. Now, we all have that show from when we were kids that we remember fondly, but other people either don't remember, kinda were aware of, and don't really understand why you know it's awesome. I'm going to discuss with you today one of those shows, and let me know if you remember it. That would be the Laser Tag Academy. It ran for 13 episodes in 1986. It was cancelled by all accounts, and some of my research is coming from IMDb, so this is a little twitchy. I was 2 when this came out, so, I don't exactly have first-hand knowledge from the time. It was cancelled apparently due to the bankruptcy of the parent company that made it. It was later the rights were bought by Saban Entertainment, the people that made Power Rangers, and the crossover between this and Power Rangers, actually, now I'm thinking about that in my head, would kind of work. Later, it was purchased as part of a sort of multimedia deal and is now technically owned by Disney. Technically. Which makes the villain whose name I've forgotten. Makes Draxon Greer, the main villain of the show, a Disney villain. Which makes Draxon Greer... Greer? Is it Greer? Fuck me, why can I not do this? Which makes Draxon Greer a Disney villain. Which is kind of awesome. In a stupid kind of way, but mainly just for me, because, again, I have very fond memories of this show. The basic premise is pretty simple. Bunch of kids, of course... some time travel shenanigans, this guy, Draxon Greer, and creatures that I can only describe as a cross. It looks like a gargoyle and a lion got some giggity, and this monstrosity, unholy creation of nature was the result. Although I do recall as a kid kind of wanting one as a mask. I thought they were kind of cool, but all the same, they're bloody weird looking little things. But they were his henchmen. Every major villain in the 80s and 90s had to have his disposable henchmen. Whether they were foot soldiers, stormtroopers, doesn't really matter. These were his stormtroopers. And basically he time traveled and he was trying to make time work for him. Kind of Time Cop-esque. And the Laser Tag Academy, they come from this future where everything is perfect and benevolent and nothing ever goes wrong and everything's great. And then there's this guy, this megalomaniac egotist who just wants power. He's basically edited out the swear words there, and yeah, I have good memories of this show. I don't know who else out there remembers it. It is really hard to find copies of it. I did used to have a VHS copy, and I remember being really devastated, and for whatever reason we got rid of the VHS copy. And back then, VHS copies, if you're old like me, VHS, when something like a TV show came out on video, you didn't get the complete box set. You didn't get everything like you would with a DVD or Blu-ray or 4K now. Or obviously if you get it off Amazon or whatever and you download the full series. No, it's more like you'd get a couple of episodes. And I had this video cassette and it had just a handful of episodes on it. It was really good. But I think I had like volume 1 or volume 2. And for whatever reason we got rid of it. I don't remember the reason why, I was too young. But I do remember that in the paper sleeve inside the video, it was torn. It had this very, very distinctive tear down one corner, but it hadn't fell out. It was like torn, but still attached a little bit. And many, many years later, when I was by now in my early 20s, so many, many years ago from now, I was working in a second-hand pawn shop, and that exact video came in as something someone had traded in, and I was like, oh my effing god, I'm having that. It was like 50 pence or something. Open the damn thing. Could I find the fucking cassette? No. All I could find was other cassettes, other videos. It had the wrong thing in it. Or had someone recorded over it, because there was a way of actually recording over them. You put a bit of tape over where the tab was, you could tape over them. I think that's what had actually happened. I think so. I think someone had taped over it, and I was so devastated. I was like, "That is my childhood. How can you not have known, you insensitive jerk? Whoever you are, anonymous stranger who happened to have what used to be my property that I tried to repurchase many years later." Going off on my tangent there, getting back from it, I was very devastated. I've never been able to find any decent copies of it, at least none that are affordable. And I can't find it streaming anywhere. It has occasionally materialized on YouTube, but not in its entirety. Other than the fact that I personally really loved it, you may not. people who actually have watched it out there, and they're few and far between. We're literally probably a dying breed of people that actually saw this thing. 'Cause remember, 13 episodes back in the mid 1980s. It's probably long forgotten by a lot of people, but I would like to know if anyone else out there has at least seen it, and if you have seen it, do you remember it and did you like it? Because I loved it. I mean, seriously though, the 80s, it had some of the most inventive and unique and distinctive ideas. It was a time where they really experimented with different types of animated shows, usually trying to sell you stuff. Let's face it, He-Man, Transformers, they were really just invented to sell you the toys that were associated with them. The toys even came first. This probably, quite frankly, was the same, but I don't care. They came up with some of the most inventive storylines, ideas and concepts for cartoons of any decade I've ever known, and that's including decades long before I was born, because I'm a huge television fanatic. And they give them these absolutely brilliant and stunning opening sequences, a bit like the one on Now, which obviously is basically just a clip show of what's in the show, but it gave you everything. It's like a self-contained microcosm of the show itself. I want to know if anyone else did, because I always look back on this thing, it's like, oh, there's potential, it was so good, and it only got cancelled because the place went bankrupt. They would have carried on making this thing and we could have had a lot more enjoyment out of it. It was quite an interesting concept. It was fairly high concept for a kids show. The animation was actually really good. It was easily on par with, say, the Transformers or something like that, but it was story driven in a way that I didn't really see in a lot of others. It wasn't really, I don't know if it was aiming to sell toys, because I don't recall ever having any toys of it, but it was definitely well made, well scripted, and of course voiced by Frank Welker, because what isn't voiced by Frank Welker? This is like saying Jeffrey Combs is in an episode of Star Trek. It's like, no, Jeffrey Combs? Of course Jeffrey Combs is in an episode of Star Trek. I'm telling you, there is not a single character in Star Trek that is not, at some point in their history, if not continuously since they began, being played by Jeffrey Combs. And that includes people who were in Star Trek before he was born. Back to subject. Frank Welker did some of the voices, and that's still awesome, no matter what you say. I mean, Frank Welker, come on. He's in everything, but he's always awesome when he's in everything. Then what that guy can do with his vocal cords is like, he's a miracle worker. So anyway, I'm going to bring this to a close because I don't want this video to be short. Just kind of, I was sort of pondering this episode. More accurate, I was pondering this show, and I just thought, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do a video about it. So this is a Nerd Remembers Laser Tag Academy, and let me know if you remember it too. And if you haven't, go and see if you can find a copy. And also, if you can find a copy, put a comment. I will hopefully see the comment at some point. I don't care when you see this video. I don't care if it's been up for 5 years. I'm probably still looking. Put it in the comments. I'm going to go now. You've reached the end of this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching all that good stuff. And bye-bye. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share, and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now. And in the description box below, there are links to my other social media accounts.